Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, another entry here based on one of your new suggestions. This one having to do with an interesting suggestion that mimics, in this case, a very famous American cryptid here. Probably one of the most famous ones of all, an all-star, if you will. So I decided to pick this one because it's fascinating again to see the relationship between same type of cryptids, but it seems like different parts of the world. Almost like snakes, obviously, are one of a kind, essentially, but each one of them look different and act different in some cases from each other, but they're all pretty much part of the same species. So very, very interesting info to share here, including some known encounters of this cryptid, and it seems to be at one specific place as well. So also another favorite thing of mine here, and it has to do with this. It's known as the Owlman, which you're looking at a picture of here. It goes by other names as well. I believe it's the Cornwall Owlman, but for all intents and purposes its main moniker is known as the Owlman. When I was reading this, it almost seemed like it was like a superhero, the kind of stuff you would see in your average Marvel DC comic book, but no, if the legends are true, this is a real life cryptid that maybe even to this day permeates that area. So let's go ahead, let's talk about all that information associated with this creature here. So what is this Owlman? Well, essentially, it's a humanoid-sized owl that has, in this case, owl-like similarities, but very, very close to the Mothman, which I had mentioned just a little bit ago, the all-star, one of the most famous cryptids of them all. I'll include my link of the video below as well that I did a little while back regarding the Mothman. So those of you that have asked for it recently or within the past couple of months, you'll have access to my video, because that's what happens a lot of times. A lot of you make suggestions, but it's already good news. I already have that stuff made, and so that's why I like linking these things beforehand. So in this case, this Owlman, I guess you could call it its cousin, or maybe it was the original Owlman, who knows, but it is a creature that is found here, Cornwall, England. That's why sometimes it's known as the Cornwall Owlman, and it's been sighted there multiple times over the past maybe several decades or so, with the first sighting happening in the 1970s. But for all intents and purposes, the way it looks, just imagine if you were to cross a human with an Owlman, in this case most of the body being human, let's say man-sized legs, a chest, maybe even some arms, but sometimes of course substituted for actual wings, and then the head itself being that of a very, very large owl with the almost piercing, just gazing into your soul type eyes. Those of you that have seen owls in real life know exactly what I'm talking about, that stare that they do. It's like they're looking past you into another dimension itself. They just have one of the most intimidating stares of anything. And interestingly enough, owls, for whatever reason, seem to be associated with UFO activity as well. So that's yet another area that could be associated here when it comes to the Owlman. But yes, the first known sighting occurred, in this case, back in 1976, a good 40 or so years ago. And it happened to a gentleman who was vacationing with his two daughters, a 12-year-old named June and another one, a 9-year-old named Vicky. And the way this gentleman was stating, his name was Don Melling, by the way, they were there vacationing near that area, Cornwall, England, specifically near a church. This church seems to be its home, because it seems like there's multiple instances of this creature, whatever this Owlman is, being found by this church. The first known encounter, though, was with one of the girls. The girl Vicky stated, or I'm sorry, both of them actually stated that they were near the woods by this Mothman church, and then they heard first something involving a large winged creature. They looked up, and then that's when they saw this thing. There it was, right above the church. Seems like by the church tower. Unknown, I think it was either flying around it or it was hovering. The key thing was it was by that area. And when that happened, of course, and they saw this thing looking all humanoid with those large piercing eyes, its intimidating stare, the giant wings, they were clearly frightened. So they went to run as quickly as they can to, in this case, their father, told them about it, and they cut the vacation short thereafter, which makes sense. If you see something like this out there in your area, nearby, essentially you'll be vacationing for a couple of days, you're not going to stay there thereafter. You're going to pretty much abandon it altogether and get the hell out of there. So that's what they did. They in turn told a paranormal researcher, a guy by the name of Tony Shields, but goes by the name Doc, and he was able to chronicle their visit there. But this was again 1976, April 17th. To be specific. Cut to a couple of months later, July 3rd, and this was another encounter as well. In this case, there was another young girl, 14-year-old, named by Sally Chapman. She was vacationing with a friend named Barbara Perry, also near the same area of this church. And she stated that as she was outside her tent, presumably during the nighttime, that's when she heard another sound, very similar in this case to the one encountered by the other two girls. And when they looked up, sure enough, they saw this thing yet again. There it was again with its red eyes, its pointed ears, looking straight at them, and it was flying up into the air. This time, though, they noticed one key characteristic that the other girls didn't. It had these gigantic claws, the claws that you see on owls when it comes to them being on the hunting grounds. If you've ever seen those slow motion videos, almost beautiful videos, that if you see an owl going straight towards the camera as it's catching prey that's right by the camera, you'll see those claws in action. Just perfect tools when it comes to hunting things, whether during the day or during the night. I mean, there's no escaping those claws. They were also able to state that the color of this creature, whatever it was, its fur, its feathers, was silvery gray. So that seems to be another characteristic that happened as well. And then there was yet another sighting the following day, another sighting later on in June and then August of 1978. So yet a different set of months, different set of years, and all of this happened as well within the church. These were all witnessed by other people. Apparently this guy, Doc Shields, he was someone that was taking, I guess, account of these sightings, and he was able to report on them and I guess create some kind of, I don't know, journal, itinerary, I don't know exactly what it is, but he was the one that people went to when it came to reporting these sightings of this Owlman. He himself, though, is not without controversy. It seems like he was known for a period of creating hoaxes, maybe along the lines of trying to make sure that attention could go to himself or maybe to the cause that he had. I don't have much information on that, but in this case, whether the stuff that he reported regarding the Owlman was embellished or whether it was true, it's up to you to decide. But the fact that multiple people reported this along with the same location, along with the same type of encounters, that seems to be too much of a coincidence. At least in this case, too, everyone that was reporting this information, the good news was nobody was attacked. So this is a creature that, if it's truly out there, can absolutely make a big mess. I mean, this is can be very, very deadly towards humans, but no, in this case, it seems like it hasn't had any bad things happen to humans around that area, even though it could essentially do something really, really, really bad. One other sighting that happened, in this case, another sighting, but this was different in the sense that none of this was reported to this Doc Shields guy. There was a guy who went by his name Gavin, but it seems like this was a pseudonym or some other false name that he gave to protect his identity. He stated that he saw a creature as well, and this was the way he described it: about 5 feet tall, legs had high ankles, the feet were large and black with 2 huge toes on the visible side, and the creature was gray with brown, and the eyes definitely glowed. So that was his sighting. What makes it notable, though, is that this happened in 1989. So almost 25 plus years, I'm sorry, over 20 years at least, when it came to the original sighting, the very first sighting back in the church. So if that's the case, then you have a creature here. Maybe it's the same one, maybe it's different, but if it's the same one, then it definitely can live several decades outright. So maybe this is a creature that even to this day is still around. And if you want an even more recent sighting, there was a lady, a tourist in Chicago, that wrote that she was, in this case in 1995, she was another person witness to this Owlman. I couldn't tell if she was there at that location of the church or if she saw this elsewhere, Presumably, though, she was by that same area there in Cornwall, England. But either case, she told, in this case, the Western Morning News, stated that she too saw this Owlman, and she described it as a man-bird with a ghastly face, a wide mouth, glowing eyes, and pointed ears. And most prominently, it had these clawed wings too. So, lots of known cases, lots of known sightings over several decades, in fact. Same creature, who knows? Multiple creatures. That's another avenue as well. If you're wondering, though, what is the most likely outcome of this creature and its encounter, there's the idea that it's yet another cryptid that has been misinterpreted from a real life animal. Take a look at this. You're looking at a real animal. This is as real as they get. It's the largest known owl within Africa, but it seems like it lives within other parts of the world too. The official name is the Varroque's eagle owl, but it is also known by the moniker as the giant eagle owl. There are some researchers that state that these encounters that have happened over several decades are nothing more than truly an encounter with this thing, with the giant eagle owl that resides within that area. And they probably surmise, but this is based on the assumptions that this is nighttime when these things happen. People's senses get out of whack because they can't really tell perception in the nighttime, and then also they have the surprise of seeing this creature just out of the blue, and so that in turn allows them to embellish things, not purpose but by accident, because there they are in a frightened state of mind, and in some cases running as fast as they can. When they look back and they see this thing, they only have a split second to gauge its size. This creature truly measures almost 3 feet in total length. I mean, look at it compared at least to a human. You can see that its head is as big as a human, but it can be considered much larger during false perception. I remember there was this video. If I had the link for it, I would share it, but I can't remember what it's from. But it's the idea that when people have only a split second to look at something, they in turn create these wild ranges, like completely off when it comes to the true size of something. And the video tested it by putting, no kidding, an owl man or an owl-sized thing within a field, and then people would drive by at night not knowing that that thing would be there. So they would have a split second to almost see it within their peripheral vision, and then they would be asked what was the size of this thing, and then the people would describe that it was humongous, like much larger than it truly was. Such is the case here that a lot of researchers believe, that I think has credence to. I don't want to necessarily scratch off this cryptid, this so-called Owlman, but at the same time, if you see something like this at night, and then there it is, and you're in a frightened state of mind, you're going to think larger things than they really are, and you're not going to be able to catch all the minute details when you're running for your life. So I think in some cases, there could be where this was nothing more than a giant eagle owl. But in all cases, I don't know exactly. There's several more instances that makes me feel comfortable of just writing it off completely. But that's my opinion, at least. So, but that's it. That's all the information tied to this Owlman, or again known as the Cornish Owlman, or in some other places known as the Cornwall Owlman. If anybody has any more info, any known encounters, anybody visit that location, that would be really great to hear. No doubt it's a popular tourist site by this point, with people going there maybe even at night to try to capture evidence of this creature, but alas, nothing else at all. But if anyone has any more perspective on it, that would be really awesome to hear. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.